So here's the deal. If you didn't see the handout, which looks a little bit what's on the page there, then just send an email to jennifer@referralcoach.com. We're using a new technology this time. We haven't used this Zoom platform before. So I'm going to ask for your forgiveness up front for any wrinkles that we may have technologically. But good for taking notes if you want. And yes, we will be taking questions. I got the question box open, so hopefully I can see things that come through. And we'll do some formal remarks, and then we'll have some Q&A at the end. There's my email address on the screen, so if you have any questions that come to you later, you always know how to reach out to me. And for those of you that may be a little bit new to referralcoach.com, then you'll be able to see the resources. And I see that someone has raised their hand, and I've got to figure out how to do that. Oh, Lord. Let's see. Well, it's not showing up here. So I'm just going to have to keep going, guys. All right. Thank you. So here's the agenda for today. We're going to give you a few basics of communicating your value. It's to set some context for you as we get into the theme of today, which is around talking about our value in the holiday season, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year's, you name it, and beyond, of course, any kind of social settings, this sort of works. And what we know is that how we talk about our value in a social setting usually is going to be different than how we might do it in more of a business setting. And then I'm going to show you a little tool we just created, a little program for you to pick my brain further on this if you're interested. And then how to get into that conversation with friends and colleagues, and not colleagues, but family members, etc. Maybe to set up an appointment, a business appointment, where you've been reluctant to talk to them about that in the past. So that's the essence of what we're going to talk about here today. So here are a few important basics around communicating your value. By the way, this is all going to be in my new book, Radical Relevance, that I'm working hard to finish as quickly as I can. So what is the biggest objection that you and I face out in the market? Well, I would say that you'd probably agree with me that it's inertia, right? Getting people to move from where they are and to look at something a little bit different. If you're a financial professional, then for them to move away from who they might be working with, or to move to doing something and stop taking their head out of the sand, right? It's inertia to keep people moving. Do you face the challenge where sometimes your emails or voicemails don't get answered, right? Even if you've been referred to them, sometimes you don't hear back, or you have a prospect either on the phone or maybe even you have a meeting and they seem interested, but then they go MIA, right? The radio silence, and what's going on there? Well, the truth of the matter is, if people who are introduced to you or you meet with and all of a sudden the interest goes away, it's a good chance that the way you talked about your value wasn't relevant enough to keep their interest or compelling enough to keep them with you and to actually move them to take action. So what we make sure we do is that we talk about our value. We want to hit that part of the brain, and there literally is a part of the brain that we want to hit that resonates, that it's relevant, so they stay interested and compelling to move them to actions. That's what we're trying to accomplish. We're not just talking about an elevator pitch here. When I use the words value proposition, I'm not talking elevator pitch. I'm not necessarily talking about our unique selling position. I'm not saying those things aren't something we don't want to have. We do want to have short, compelling ways to talk about what we do. But our value proposition is really something much more than that. It really is a very comprehensive way we look at our value. And we have to start there, and then you'll see in a slide coming up in a couple minutes how we narrow down to our shorter statements. We don't start with the shorter statement. So I have a few quizzes here, and I haven't figured out the polling feature on Zoom yet, so I'm going to share with you some statistics that I've gotten from other sources as I've surveyed in my live presentations. Let me move a box on the screen. So, have you ever stopped to identify your full value, right? From the beginning, when you talk to someone on the phone, a prospect, or with an email, and then you stay with them over time, all the different ways you provide value. Have you ever stopped, to think about that? Yes or no? Well, I did 4 presentations for a firm this year, and we asked these questions. And here's the responses we got. About 82% of these folks, and most of these were veterans, pretty successful folks, 82%, almost 83, said they had never really taken the time. And especially when it comes to their staff or people that work with them, their team. They haven't done it in a team approach. They haven't gotten their staff to totally buy into this. And then 16%, there's always a little bit less than 100 here because some people don't answer the questions, said they had done this. So one of the first things you want to do is make sure that you're really clear on all the value that you bring. This is a great exercise. Now, you don't have to do this before you implement some of the other things we're going to talk about on the strategy, but I want to give you context around this. So you want to trace your client journey, and it's always best if you do this with a colleague, with a staff member, team, etc. So you're not trying to do this in a vacuum. So there's the prospect experience. What are all the things you do to bring value to your prospects? What are the questions you ask, the things you teach, all the different ways you bring value to your prospects so that they become clients if it's a win-win, and you become referable in that process, right? And then the new client experience, your onboarding process. What does your onboarding process look like? Do you have one? And I'm not just talking about entering data into the computer, into your CRM. I'm talking about other ways you reach out to new prospects to welcome them down the metaphorical red carpet into your practice. And then the ongoing client experience, the client service promise that you offer and how you stay in touch with your clients. And obviously every business is different in what that looks like. But determining all those points of value. And then one of the best things you can do after that is actually talk to your clients and ask them to reflect on the things that you've learned, because you're going to actually discover things that you didn't even think about. I've had so many clients give me ways to talk about my value that I never would have thought of. Michael Schmidt said, "Bill, you make asking for referrals as natural as breathing." Well, thank you, Michael. I never would have thought of saying that. And of course, I use that with his quotes all the time, right? So one of the questions I got pre-conference, pre-webinar was, how do I distill all the value I provide into a single statement, right? How do I provide this value? And so I want to give you a sense of this. I mentioned this a second ago. And yes, we are recording this. So I know I'm going pretty quickly, but I hit record, so we should all be good there. And so you start broad, right? And I'm not going to go into all the detail around this right now. It's not the purpose of this webinar, but I'm giving you a sense of how you distill down to that final branding statement, if you will. What we don't want to do is try to start with the small statement first. We start narrow. You're going to have a much better value proposition. This is not always an easy thing to do, but you keep cutting and keep cutting and keep cutting and get to the essence, and you lose all the wasted words. So let me give you an idea, just kind of an example from my own business. So our current website headline, that almost a slogan is, more clients through referrals and introductions. That's what we help you do. That's what we help people do. And we're adding this new wrinkle around value proposition, which is still related to that. It really hits all aspects of our practice, does it not? So, so the new one we're experimenting with, and it's just an experiment at this moment, but more ideal clients through introductions and compelling value. Right? So the introduction will never go away, the importance of that. And if we get introduced, we have to have a compelling way to talk about our value to that new prospect. So we're adding that. But that took a lot of time to distill that into what we actually do. So I've got a couple questions that come through. Debbie wanted to know, hey, Debbie, always good to hear from you. What would you ask your client to draw out the value you provide? Well, what you'll do is you'll go to your client and say, and you don't do this to all your clients, obviously. You go to clients that have kind of a marketing mindset, or they love you, and they're happy to help you with your practice any way they can. And then what happens is you say, here are the points of value we've determined. This is how we've kind of assessed the places we bring value. Can you have a look at that? You can even send it ahead of time if you want. Take them for a meal, whatever, and just talk about how do you react to this? How would you say this? What does this mean to you? And of course, this is a great, value discussion, which we talk about in the setting up for the referral conversation. But you just learn a lot about how they respond to this. And so you bring this to front of some of your key clients, 3, 4, 5 of them, and just get their perspective on this. All right. So what I like to call this is a powerful value positioning statement. And there's a lot of things you can put in here, but I want to show you a quick formula of what goes into a powerful value positioning statement. You know, your what? Your expertise. What is your expertise? And don't be afraid to use that word, and I'll show you how you can do it. Your who, right? Your ideal client. Who are you trying to attract? And usually the more narrow, the better if you've picked the right target. The solutions you provide, right? Your business really are the problems you solve. That's your business. That's my business, right? That's our brand. The problems we solve. In my case, it's helping you identify more of the right clients and cutting through all the noise so you reach those people through referrals, introductions, better value, etc. And then your why. And I want to focus a little bit on the why. And if you've heard me talk about this in the past, you know how important I believe this is. This is what allows you to connect very quickly with prospects and new clients with you as an individual. You've probably seen me share the study by Julie Littlechild that shows who gives referrals and that there's a low correlation between client satisfaction and the giving of referrals. And that what we need to do is create these engaged relationships, engage with our value and engage with who we are as individuals. And the why is what will let us do that. So when we focus on this why, when we say, you know, that's a little bit about how we do what we do and what it looks like. Let me tell you a little bit about why I do this, or let me shift gears for a second, or let me take a step back for a second and tell you about why I got into this business, or why I'm still in this business after so many years, or why I believe the work I do now is more important than ever before. It's usually a story. People will lean into this. They'll listen to you differently around this why. This is such an important thing to do. By the way, for those of you who just joined us, a reminder, if you didn't get the handout for this, for taking some notes, not all the slides are on it, but most of them, so it's good for taking notes. Just shoot an email right now to Jennifer at Referral Coach. She's monitoring that, and she can get that out to you. So I got another pop quiz for you. Do you have a client-focused why, right? Do you have a way to talk about your value? Not you got in this business because you make a lot of money and have freedom over your schedule. I'm talking about the client-centered why. Somewhere along the line, you realize you really helped people, right? And so in the studies that we've done this summer with some of the groups I spoke to, 30%, almost over 31, said, no, I don't have it. But, you know, a fair amount, almost, you know, over 2/3 said, yeah, I do have a client-focused why. But then I asked them, do you share this with prospects? Do you share your why? And look at this. 73% said, no, I don't talk about this. And I'm telling you, if you don't talk about your why, you're missing an opportunity. And in just a minute or so, you're going to see how this could be a part of how you talk about what you do in those social settings, right? This is a way to kind of emphasize, you know, how you believe in your value without getting into your standard elevator pitch, right, that you work so hard to perfect. So a powerful value positioning statement. It's clear, concise. I think that makes sense. And what I mean by clear is that it's not jargony. We use a lot of jargon. We forget how jargony we get. Sometimes it's conversational, right? We're not writing a paper for our English teacher. We're always talking in terms of benefits. It conveys emotion, and it cites examples. And now you're a financial professional. Most people on this call are, but not everybody. If you're dealing with money, then there's always emotion around money, right? So that's usually pretty easy. So, you know, how effective are you at telling others about your value? Are you, you know, do they respond well? Do they respond to your emails? Or are these people kind of going MIA, right? This is all about confident and relevant value. So we're going to show you how this plays out as we get now into talking about social situations. So I wanted to give you a little bit of context in the system, and hope you find this helpful. No questions that I see at the moment, so let's keep going. All right, so the old what do you do, right? You're sitting down at the Thanksgiving table and you meet someone for the first time, a long-lost cousin or a boyfriend of a sibling or whatever, you know. So tell me more about what you do, right? And so what you don't want to do, the mistake that I see is people revert into their elevator pitch. And you probably know you don't want to do that, right? I'm a financial professional. I work with individuals and couples who want to minimize it, blah, 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 right? No, you know you don't want to do that, right? But a lot of people err too far on the other side, and they turn shy or modest, right? Well, I work in finance, pass the potatoes, right? Or I'm a business consultant, more wine. Or, you know, I'm a business coach. Did you see the game last night, right? They minimize their value. And what we're trying to do is find kind of a in-between happy medium between not going overboard with our, you know, our elevator pitch, and yet not shying away from us believing in the work we do. Well, similar in this, how's business, right? So this could be someone who's known you for a long time. Hey, how's business? A very common question you might get, right? Again, the mistake, reverting to your, oh, fantastic. I'm doing great work for my clients. In fact, you and I should have a conversation about this at some point, right? So that's sometimes the problem that comes up, right? Is we go too far into that. And then if you don't want to look like that, you get over shy or modest. Hey, business is good. Thanks for asking. You know, do you mind if I change the channel to catch the game? Right. So what's the happy medium, right? Hi, Mr. Know-it-all. You know, what do you suggest? Well, hold your horses. I'm going to get there. I need to give you just a little more context around this. So where do we communicate our value? When we're talking about our value in all the different ways, it's everywhere, right? It's in our LinkedIn profile. It's on our website. It's how we talk to people with an email or over the phone or an event like a social event, right? It's everywhere. And what are we trying to accomplish when we talk about our value? For a lot of folks, they're just trying to say, here's what we do, right? And they don't think any further, right? Well, here's what we do. Here's who I am, right? But there's really more to it, right? First of all, aren't we trying to attract the right people to us? Aren't we trying to, shouldn't we be talking about our value in a way that you know, resonates in the brain, so people who have see the relevance to their life will look up and go, oh, okay, maybe I should pay attention to that, right? Yeah, I'll give you a couple more seconds of my time. And then aren't we also trying to repel the people who don't fit our business? And, you know, I mean, if you're brand new in the business, you'll take someone who fogs a mirror. They're breathing. But most people are trying to be a little bit more selective. And the more successful you get, the more narrow you usually want to be. So we want to make sure we talk about our value in a way that brings people into our world that we want to talk to and repels the wrong people so we don't have to waste their time, our time, right? And don't we also want to try to create action on their part? Aren't we trying to move them to some action? We're not just talking about our value for value's sake. We want to create movement, right? A good value proposition, a good value positioning statement will actually create movement. And then ultimately what your clients want to know is not what makes you different, although that's a factor in this. Don't get me wrong. They want to know, are you the right fit for me? That's the ultimate question that a prospect wants to know. Are you the right fit for me? And you want to know that too. It's a mutually qualifying process. It's a mutually qualifying how you communicate your value, how you learn about them, and together you figure out, is this the right fit? And I want to ask you an important question. When you know you're the right fit for a prospect, do you tell them that? I don't have the stats here, but the stats from the surveys we did this past year is that about 35, I think it's 35 or 36% said yes, and the rest said no, we don't do that. We forget to do that. My own advisor, Aaron, said that he forgets to do that sometimes. He tells his clients it's a mutually qualifying or prospect, but he never says, you know, I believe that I could provide great value for you. And here's why. We don't want to just say, you know, I believe that we can do great work together or anything, any version of that. We can say that, then we want to say, and here's why. You told me this. Here's how we can help you with this. You told me that. Here's how we can help you with this. And this, my friends, will make a huge difference in converting interested prospects into actual clients. So I've had a lot of folks that people have heard I'm writing the book and they want to know, you know, that I can't wait for the book. They want my help around this. People calling all the time. My staff has been pushing me kind of do this. And I've learned that some people need a value prop overhaul, right? They've never really kind of got this tight. And some people just need a fine tuning. So real quick, before we get into some of the other solutions to these questions, I want to just tell you about a little package we put together. I'll only take a minute to share. Something we've never really offered before because, you know, we had a big, huge practice coaching program, but not everybody wants that. Some people just want to have some conversations with me to get better at this. So if you go to coachcates.com, you'll see this. This is what the page looks like. And very quick, what you get is you get our radical relevance value proposition generator, which will run you through the paces of how to really explore and get and develop and start to articulate and communicate your value. You send that to me. We hop on the phone. We talk through it. I ask you some questions. You get more and more clear. Then you got a little more work to do. You're going to go back. You're going to refine. If you can do this with staff, that's great. And then we'll get back on the phone again. And we'll make sure that we send you off into 2018 with the best possible way to communicate your compelling value. It's only 199 bucks. We have 11 slots. I only have so much time for this, especially as I'm writing the book. And so, you know, if you think this could be helpful for you, you can reserve a slot now. We don't have to start now. We could start a little later in the year. We could start at the beginning of next year, whatever works for you. But I want to make sure we get this going on the calendar for both of us, right? So how do we answer these questions, right? So the key is to lighten up, right? The key in social settings, we've got to lighten up a little bit. But we want to create curiosity too, do we not? Because we want to keep the conversation going a little bit, at least for them to get a sense of our value. So we feel good, they feel good. And sometimes they'll say, hey, I think this is something I need to do, right? So that's what we're trying to create, right? But we do it by lightening up. So one way to do this is to talk about your why, as I mentioned earlier. So someone says, well, what do you do? Well, you know, my expertise is in personal finance. And I got to tell you, I'm more excited about the work I do now than ever before, right? So that's one way to do it. Oh, really? Tell me why, right? Tell them, they're going to say why. I'm a financial advisor, consultant. I'm a business consultant. And I have to tell you, this is a great time to be doing the work that I do. Oh, great. Why is that? Right? They're going to come back with a why is that question. And then you can talk about your why. Well, here's the work I've been doing for some of my clients. You've been given permission. They've let you into this to talk about a little bit, right? Now, it's great if you have a story. The best place to go next is a story, is an example. For example, was meeting with a client today, was meeting with a client yesterday. We had a client last week, right? We had a client this past summer, whatever it is, some sort of story that conveys the value that you do, right? I'm a financial professional. Can I tell you a quick story about something that happened today, right? Or my expertise is in business consulting. You know, we essentially help CEOs, move through the barriers that keep them from creating the business they want to create. Can I give you a quick example? Oh yeah, sure, right? So you're giving them a chance to give you permission. Now, if they kind of start to look at the game, you know, on Thanksgiving, or they start to look for something else to eat, now you know, all right, you've done enough, move on. But usually this will pull people in, right? Your why, your story. People like stories. If it's funny, you know, tell a funny story, tell a fun example, right? Or, you know, I'm a financial professional, although sometimes I feel like a therapist or a couples counselor, right? I was working with a mortgage guy in Australia. He wanted to use his sense of humor, his playful nature in this. He said, well, I'm a mortgage broker, but most of the time I feel like a couples counselor. And his clients, I'd say, or the people listening say, yeah, I bet. Talking about money, right? Well, oh yeah, can I tell you a quick story? Something happened last week. And now you're having a fun conversation about the work you do. And they see that you care about your clients. They see that you believe in your value, but you're doing this in a good-natured way. You're not coming on too strong in a holiday social type of setting. My expertise is in, right? Whatever it is. You know, my expertise is in personal finance. I protect people from all the financial fantasy shown on TV and the internet. My buddy, colleague, Bill Backrack calls it financial pornography. You may not want to use that word, so call it financial fantasy, right? You know, you've seen the commercials, right? Where someone's getting to retire, getting ready, and they buy a winery, or they buy the yacht, or they buy this. Well, how many people in our world can actually do that? And so that's why sometimes I call it financial fantasy. So the key is to have fun here, right? I talk about having fun with referrals all the time, right? Art is a financial professional in Baltimore. He says, you know, we're just brainstorming here. I'm looking for about 100 people. And his clients laugh. And when you have humor, everything gets easier, right? And then you can actually hit people with a poignant point. I guess I can say that, right? Because humor opens the heart, right? And so when there's a laugh, you can say, well, I know we're having a little fun, but I got to tell you, this really is important work. Can I share a quick statistic? Yeah, 75% of people in our society are, you know, haven't saved a dime for retirement, or whatever statistic you want to share, right? I'm making that up, but something like that. So, or Doug is a financial advisor in Omaha. He says, yeah, do you know any lottery winners, right? And they laugh. No, Doug, we don't know any lot. So anytime you can add fun to this conversation, it really makes a big difference here. So I'm new to this platform. I told you that. There's some chats coming in. That's where this is. All right, so let me see the chats. All right, so Debbie says she can hear me. Great, thank you, Debbie. What are some examples of positioning statements? Yeah, let me give you that real quick. So, Helen, so my expertise is in personal finance. Let's go with that, because most folks who are on this call are financial professionals. Or my expertise is in business consulting. In my case, my expertise is in business growth, right? I work with, and that states who you work with. I work with small business owners. I work with financial advisors. You could say I work with couples. I work with business owners, right? And that defines who you work with, who want to. My expertise in personal finance, I work with small business owners who want to maximize their investments and minimize their tax burden and retire with dignity, or whatever it is. And the who wants to, when you say what they want, when you say what your target market wants, what does that do? Now you're talking in terms of benefits. So it's actually easy to talk about benefits in a very quick statement. I work with financial advisors who want to grow their business without increasing their marketing expense, right? So that's a quick statement. And then you follow that up with an example. For example, whenever you say I work with who want to, it's a real quick way to get a lot of the value prop in one sentence. And then you share an example, or it could be your why, could be a fun story. It brings it a little bit more to life. If someone's a little confused, unsure about that, it brings it a little bit. Do I need a promo code for the coaching calls page? No, you do not. You just go straight in. It's built just for this webinar. So thank you for that, James. Elevator pitches rarely work unless you strike a conversational tone. You're absolutely right. And so what I'm talking about here is for social situations, but there's no reason you can't use this in a business situation, right? There's no reason why you can't have a little fun in this. And when you do that, you draw people in a little bit, right? And then you make it very conversational. So Richard says, 70% of first generation wealth is squandered by the second generation. My job is to make sure that doesn't happen to my clients, right? So it could go like this. Go, Rich, so I'm a financial advisor, or however you describe yourself, Rich, and say, I work with family-owned businesses, right? Or I work with business owners, solely hold businesses. And what I've learned is that 70% of first generation, right, is squandered by the second generation, and my job is to make sure that doesn't happen. And they'll go, yeah, I'm a little concerned about handing this over to my oldest son. I'm thinking of skipping him and going to my younger son, right? And then now you have a conversation, and you can sometimes laugh about it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So I'm learning the platform, guys. So thank you for being patient with me on this. Let's keep going. All right. How do you talk to friends and acquaintances about business, right? And to request a possible appointment. And it's a little tricky. This is not an easy thing to do. I get that. You got to come from that place of believing in your value, right? You really have to come from that place. And so the verbiage could be this. And this is why I put the slides out in the handout, so you can grab this verbiage. You don't have to try to scribble real fast, right? Unless you're driving, in which case you better pull over. George, I've been thinking about your situation lately. I have clients who have experienced a similar challenge. We've never really sat down. I'm just going to read this, to talk business. But if you're open to it, I think I might be able to provide some ideas. No pressure to do business, just a little brainstorming. So if you know me, I like the word brainstorming because it means kind of just exchange of ideas without any pressure. But we move into this softly. I've been thinking about your situation, right? I've been working with a lot of folks that have a very similar situation. What your experience isn't uncommon. And I think I maybe could be a resource for you in this. Would love to see if I can help. Maybe it'll turn into a working relationship. Maybe not, but I would like to help you in this area. Would you be open to that? Can we schedule maybe a lunch meeting, right? It's as simple as that. We're giving them a chance to say no. We're not coming on too strong. We're just inviting them in to a possible conversation around that. So that's one way to do that. Another way is to confess your reluctance, right? George, there's something I've been wanting to mention to you, but I've been a little reluctant. I didn't want you to take it the wrong way. My expertise is in working with small business owners like yourself, and I suspect I might have some ideas worth considering. Would you be open to setting up a meeting at some point? And that's it. It's as simple as that, right? And so, well, I just got a question come in, so let me just look at the question that came in. I'm a little confused, all right? You refer to things as options, but they seem to be sequential steps. Well, they could be. This confess reluctance could be, before this, right? You can have the fun conversation first and then get into something a little bit more serious if it's a friend, right? So you're talking about how you think you feel like you're a couples therapist or whatever, and they laugh and you talk a little bit about, and then you could get to this and you could say, and George, I'll be honest, I have been wanting to talk to you about this a little bit for a while. I've been a little reluctant. Not everybody likes to talk with family and friends about this, but I work with a lot of clients who are going through I believe a similar situation as yours. I would love to just sit down and learn more, and maybe I can bring some new perspectives and do a little brainstorming. So yeah, there is definitely could be a blending of this. There's no question in that if that's what you had in mind, no question. Now, another great thing you can do, let me just check the time, guys. All right, we're in great shape, is to invite them to a client event. Right? Hopefully you're doing client appreciation events. I'm a big believer in that. We'll talk about that. I'm a believer in small events, by the way. Why? Because the whole point of a client appreciation event is to connect with your clients, right? It's to engage with them. And the bigger the event, the thinner the connections. The smaller the event, the better. So let's say you had a wine tasting or a chocolate appreciation event. 14, 15, 16 people, let's say. And let's say 4 or 5 or 6 of those are prospects, right? And now all of a sudden, the social proof, they're surrounded by this social proof. Financial advisors, most can't use testimonials. Well, you don't have to. Invite them to an event like this. And they see the way you engage with them and they engage with you. My financial advisor, Aaron Gay, he does this a lot. He does it with his boat. He does it with wine events. Does it with educational things as well. And by the way, this is great for centers of influence like CPAs and attorneys. When's the last time you invited a CPA or an attorney that maybe you're courting for some referrals to an event, a client appreciation event, where they get some of the nice fun, you bring your clients, and they get to see the kinds of relationships, right? So you can have just pure client appreciation events, but when you have some clients or prospects you've been courting a little bit, this is a great thing. So I want to share with you a very specific case study. Let me answer a couple questions first. All right. So Deborah says, with the holidays, how do you create the urgency to get together? Out of sight, out of mind. Well, that's the key thing here. So Deborah, if you can have some fun with this first, right? So everybody loosens up a little bit and they lighten up. Sometimes when people will start to talk about their situation, right? And if they do, that's great because that's a nice in. And now you got to be careful. You want to say, look, we're here to celebrate a holiday. We're here for whatever, right? We're not really here to talk business. And I think I could be a pretty good resource for you. I have actually a couple of articles that I'd like to send to you that's related to this. And can I follow up tomorrow or the next day and we can maybe schedule lunch around this, right? So you want to talk just enough about it. Statistics are great, right? That statistic that Richard shared about 70% of first generation wealth. Anytime you can share a statistic is left brain, right? It's not as emotional, but it can trigger an emotional response. So that's a good thing to do. So, you could say, let's say if you're a financial professional, you could say, one of the things we do, and not to get into a lot of detail, is we work up an actual plan to make sure that our clients are clear on where they are, where they want to go, what challenges they're going to face, because quite often they know challenges that I don't know about, and sometimes I know their challenges they're going to face that they don't know about. And same thing with opportunities. They know about opportunities that are coming down the road that I don't know about, and vice versa. And from that, all of my clients walk away with clarity on their financial present and future, and with confidence, knowing they're on the right road to get there. And that usually creates a level of comfort and peace of mind. And I'm really in the peace of mind business. And people go, oh, yeah, it's important. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you in terms of peace of mind, of being clear and confident? And if they give you, an 8, you can say, well, what's the gap, right? Or if they give you a 10, well, okay, fine, walk away, or, politely. Or if they give you a 5, well, tell me more about that. What's the gap? Man, we have to go into that detail now. Why don't we schedule lunch or breakfast or something? I'll take you for a round of golf and we can talk about it, right? So, Deborah, what we want to do is, if we can just find a way to have them assess their situation vis-a-vis what we're talking about, and then we can create a compelling reason to move forward. We get a little verbal commitment to take our call, I'll shoot you an email with some options for lunch, right? You're a little bit assumptive here because they agreed to it. Don't walk away, if you can, without the agreement to what will happen next. That's the key. And that's why it comes from that level of confidence, right? So I hope that helps a little bit. Let me just hit that, and then let me give you a little case study here. Oh, by the way, here are the various types of events. You got Valentine's coming up in February. Not a bad thing to think about, having all your female clients. They could be single, not single, doesn't matter. You do it over lunch. It could be prospects, could be bring a friend, doesn't have to be. Lots of different type of events. The best ones are usually the smaller ones, so you have better connections, right? So now let me tell you about Mike Barrett. I coached Mike for a long time, and actually he recommended me recently, and I spoke for his company. So Mike is a wine enthusiast, right? And he and his girlfriend, they go to tastings all the time. And he said to me, he said, Bill, how can I talk to these people? These are well-heeled people. These are a lot of charity functions. These are donors to the charity, etc. I don't know how to talk about what I do in a way that might continue that conversation. And so I said, well, base it on your interest in something you have in common, right? What do you have in common? You're usually talking about the wine, right? And he says, yeah, we're always doing that. He says, so do you ever do wine tastings? Yeah, we've done some. I said, well, I want you to do them regularly. Don't worry about how many people come, right? Sometimes you'll have 5, sometimes you'll have 15. Just have kind of a regular schedule going. Or if you meet someone at an event like this, build it around that, knowing that they're going to come. You can even say, hey, we're getting ready to schedule our next one. Let's find a date that looks good for you, and we'll work around that, because I'd love to have you come, because we bring some great wines in. And so then what happens, of course, is they say, you like this one? Yeah, well, you should come to one of my firm's wine events. And what do you do that you put on wine tasting events? And then he talks about it. Well, I'm a financial advisor, and we like to have fun, in the work we do, and we connect with our clients that way. Would love to have you come by. We're not doing timeshare sales here. Just come by and enjoy some wine, right? Meet some good people. That's what we're doing right here, right? So, and last year's business increased by 60% just by finding this way to talk about what he does in social settings that he frequents quite a bit because of his girlfriend, now fiance. All right. So just a reminder, if you want to do this coaching program where we get you engaged in the process a little bit, it's very tailored to your situation, because you're going to complete this little bit of an exercise questionnaire. Just doing that's valuable. And then if you do it with an assistant or with a teammate or a partner, whatever, then that's valuable for all of you. And then we engage and we get to make sure that you're moving into 2018. Again, we can start the work now. You got end of the year stuff. We can start it early in 2018. Just want to make sure we get there before we sell out. I just got a text from Jen that says we've had 2 people sign up so far. So now we got 9 slots left. So it's not time sensitive. It's really just demand sensitive. So questions. Let's see if we have any other questions. Actually, Jen said 4 so far. Okay, great. So we got 7 left. Thank you, Jen. All right. So I'm looking to see if there's any more chats, any more questions. I'm not seeing them. So you know my email. It's billcates@referralcoach.com. I'm a little distracted by this new platform. Can you tell? So if you have any questions that come to you later, You know, Leslie says, thank you. Going to work on my value proposition over the holiday. Perfect. You know, B says, hold on a second. All right, I'm holding on. Let me tell you one more thing about client appreciation events and how important this is to our business. And now I think now you can see how it fits into your prospecting efforts. There's a concept in psychology called congruency theory or consistency theory. Sometimes people call it confirmation bias. And so what happens is when clients who like you and trust you get together with other clients and like you and trust you, what's the net result? Well, they all like you and trust you more, right? And then when you have a few guests or maybe a prospective CPA or attorney or other center of influence there, right, now that adds on to the value. So big believer in doing that. Small, right? Small because better connection. Small because it's easier to put, look, you're not in an event planning business, right? And you can usually, they're easier to organize and you can see the fruits of your labor. So we do have another question. I'm a CPA trying to see my practice and move, sell my practice, I guess you meant, and retirement planning. Any suggestions? The whole world thinks of me as a CPA. Yeah, so, and this, by the way, this question really applies to anybody who's trying to move and adjust, right? If we're trying to change who we're trying to work with, if we're trying to change our value proposition, right? Somebody says you can refer to yourself as Mr. Technology. Well, thank you. I'll never say that. So here's the deal. The way we get people to start thinking about us differently is obviously how we talk about ourselves. So it usually takes a little bit of time, right? Because people see us in a certain light. And so we start to talk to our clients and say, you know, forever we've been helping you with your taxes and stuff. And I just want to let you know of other ways that we help our clients that I've never talked to you about. You don't have to say it's a new direction for me, right? You don't want to make it look like you're a newbie into retirement planning, right? Because in a way you're not anyway, although you are learning some new skills and you're learning about investment products, et cetera. Say other ways we've been helping our clients. And so now the beautiful thing is, because as their CPA, you really get a pretty good, solid, honest look into their financial situation, you can start to look to see where their problem points. And you say, I see where there's a problem. I see where there's a situation where you're either maximizing, not maximizing the opportunity that's in front of you, right? Or I see a situation that really is setting you up for a problem down the road in terms of maximizing your investments. Can we chat about that a little bit? Oh yeah, of course, right? So it's getting that conversation going, and it's the stories sometimes. It's sometimes the stories you tell while you're visiting with your clients. Could be on the phone, could be, so we're always planting those seeds, right? So you're talking to a client about getting his or her tax stuff ready, you know, for tax season, right? You say, you know, Oh, by the way, I got to tell you this funny story. I was talking to a client yesterday. We help with his taxes, but we're also do retirement planning as well, and right? So we find ways to plant the seed, to put that into how we talk. So I hope that helps a little bit. If you have any follow-up questions, let me know. We've got to get, we got one more from Emmanuel. Thank you. When you are at a wine tasting event, how do you get the prospect from there to your office for a first meeting? Well, so the main thing, Emmanuel, I think what you want to do is when you're ever at any kind of social event, and maybe it's not natural enough to kind of go to that next business step, right? It just didn't go there in a way you maybe you hoped it might, and it quite often doesn't. And you don't want to come across like you're at this party prospecting, right? You got to be very careful about that. I'm always looking for personal items, right? What I mean by that is personal reasons to stay in touch. Right. So when I get to talk to people that I know or don't know well, I'm looking, is there a personal reason for me to reach out to this person? Right. What are their hobbies? What common interests do we have? Could be around children, could be around sports, could be around philanthropy, it could be around, you know, environmental concerns, anything, whatever's going on in their life that's important to them. And so I'm looking for that as a reason, a non-business reason to reach out to them. And then if we can make that happen and we can hop on the phone with them and talk about that, then we can start to bring this verbiage in. When we were together at Thanksgiving, I didn't want to, really bring up too much about what I do for a living. And I know that you really care about the environment. And, some of our clients are really into creating environmentally friendly investment opportunities. Are you aware that that's possible? Right now, I'm just kind of making it up, Emmanuel, but that's how we shift, right? Is we find a reason to stay in touch with them that's more on the personal hobby, what's going on in their life that's important to them, separate from what we do, and then we can pivot into that conversation. Also, another thing we can do is if we meet someone at a social event, and let's say we're not the host, right? Let's say, so you go to a social event, you're a guest, you meet a guest there, you learn a little bit about their situation. Then you can go back to the host, right? And you can say, I met George and his wife, Martha, and, based on the conversations, I think I could be a pretty good resource for them. Could we explore how you might introduce me to them in more of a kind of a business setting, maybe a email handshake or something? And so you explore it with the host, right? You explore it with someone else who knows them, who was at the event, and now you're getting referred into them, preferably if someone there is your client. That's the best way, but even not, they can still refer you in. So I hope that helps a little bit. Boy, the questions are starting to come here. All right, so Keaton says, how would you go about relating your practice to others when you're just getting started in the industry and have no clients? Yeah. So you've got to capture stories, examples, whys from your firm, right? So you're talking about the we, right? So, I work with so-and-so, and I'll tell you, I've learned, it hasn't taken me long to learn how important the work I do is. I'm very excited about what I'm doing. Oh, tell me more. What makes you excited, right? So now you have an example. Well, our firm was working with a client. It could be a colleague, right? We are, you don't want to lie. You don't want to make it look like they're just your client and you save them from themselves. You got to be careful about that. But so you use the collective we. So Keaton, when you're new, and this is anybody on the call, when you're new in what you're doing, right, there's usually a gap between all the stuff you're hearing about the value and your true belief in the value, right? And that takes a little time sometimes. So that's why it's important to talk to mentors, to talk to other folks who've been at it, to have them really tell you stories, right? Tell me stories. Bring the value of the work that I'm about to do for people to life for me, right? I want to get that. And then those stories, Keith, are things that you can start to share with other people, so they can feel your passion, they can feel your caring. You've got some stories. Again, you're not lying about it, right? You're not making a story your own that isn't your own. So you're doing the collective we. All right. So one more question, then we're gonna have to roll, guys. Some webinars are educational, some are beneficial. This is both. Well, my pleasure. Oh, one more, James. Bill, how do we get cynical know-it-all relatives who do need to be saved from themselves to engage better? Well, it's a big question. It depends a little bit on your relationship with them. And sometimes when they're cynical know-it-alls, maybe you don't want to work with them anyway. That's possible, right? So this is where statistics can actually come in very helpful. This is where you can talk about, like for my thing, I could say, if they were my, relative and they're in the business, say, have you developed a client-centered why you talk about what you do? Oh, what do you mean by that? And then I explain a little bit, and I go, most people that have a why but don't talk about it and they miss that opportunity. It sounds like you're one of those few that don't even have a why. Why? No, I'm having a little fun with you here, James, but it's a statistic. It's having them reveal the pain a little bit if you can. But if they're know-it-alls, they're probably not going to admit to their pain. In which case, if you can't help create that gap in where they are and where they want to be, and they're not willing to admit that gap to you, then they're not a prospect, right? They're not a prospect. And until they get into some pain and then maybe see you as a resource, I wouldn't waste too much time and energy on those folks, all right? Anonymous says, I usually felt awkward in a large crowd. How should I go about overcoming that? All right, let me look at the time, guys. I want to make sure I don't go over too far. All right, we're good. So for those of you, stay with us. All right, so a couple things here. It depends a little bit on the event, obviously. If there's any way for you to work, if there's any kind of a registration table for you to start off by doing that, by checking, checking people into an event in any way at all, any way you can become part of the host committee, any way you can do that, then now you have a reason to be there other than just schmoozing. The truth is I get very shy in social settings, even business networking settings. When I'm the speaker, I'm not shy because I have a reason to be there. So that's where I've learned to work to become part of the host in some way, work the registration table, something like that. If you do, and the best way for you to engage is engage with someone else who's standing by themselves. And, and come up here and say, hey, I saw you stand here by yourself, maybe you could use a little company or, I don't know. If you can find out something funny, that's good. But I like to work the registration table. That's the way I do it. Or I like to serve the speaker if there's going to be a speaker there. I like to get engaged somehow in serving people, right? I take on a job, and then by me taking on that job, it creates interaction with other people, and then all of a sudden, I'm making friends in that way. Michael says, I have a colleague who says, no one has a monopoly on good ideas. Would you mind getting together so I can share some? I think that's fine. I think there's nothing wrong with that. Someone says, yeah, I'm working with an advisor. That's great. I appreciate that. And the last thing I want to do is stand between you and a great relationship. And most of the people I work with were working with someone before I met them. And I'm not saying that we're going to work together, but I know that nobody has a monopoly on good ideas. Everyone has their area of expertise. And, you could have some holes in your plan and not even realize it. I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't give you a chance to talk about it and see if there's a way I can help you. Right? So you kind of take the pressure off a sale type of situation. You just want to share some ideas. So I think that's great. They're book smart, but not practical smart. I get that. And we can't push a rock up a hill. So they have to be open, right? People have to be open to help. Now here's I'm going to finish with this. And this is going to be in my book, by the way, when someone knows that they have a need, right? The need is clear, it's obvious, and it's critical. It's a problem that you want to solve. That's the easiest place to be, right? It's blatant, it's clear, it's obvious, and it's critical, right? It's a problem that needs to get fixed, or it's an opportunity that you just can't pass up on. If they aren't aware of the problem, or they aren't aware of how critical that problem might be, now you have to become that it has to be that consultative sales approach. It has to be an educational sales approach. You have to start to ask probing questions and peel back the onion, and people have to let you in. And if they don't let you into this, then you really don't have someone who's going to open up to create that place where it's obvious and critical. So in the world of finance and insurance, sometimes that's what we're up against, right? Where they don't realize how important a certain type of insurance might be. And so it's not obvious to them and it's not critical. So that's where the education comes into play. And if they don't open up to this, the better you get at this of opening up that gap, then the more likely you're going to move them forward. Now, this is why the why comes in handy, because when you talk about why you do what you do and you become a little more personal and human, this actually gives people permission to tell you about their why a little bit. And you see it with clients, right? Over time, the layers of the onions just keep folding open and open and open and open. So I hope that helps a little bit. So boys and girls, guys and gals, whatever you want to say, men and women, thank you for being here. I hope you found this helpful. And we are going to process the recording. We'll send it out to you. If you continue to have questions, you let me know that. And please, happy Thanksgiving, happy holidays coming ahead, happy New Year. We got some great things planned for 2018. Look forward to seeing you then. Take care, everybody.